overall, when you blend this together, you get someone who doesn't acknowledge you as a person, who doesn't attribute good things to you, but only bad things, and then who uses aggressive language. This is a horrible experience for a student. Horrible. And if you happen to encounter this combination of ugly feelings, completely write off the adjudicator's remarks. Hi there. Today we don't have a tutorial. Today I want to talk about something that's really important to me, and that's going to be very important to students who take exams with RCM, Conservatory Canada, or students who are prepping for recitals and you're attending recitals, you're getting adjudication for them. Recently I had a student take an RCM exam and she got her mark back later, and when you get your mark back, your teacher has access to your adjudication papers and they can look over your adjudication information. That's something good to know as someone who's attending an exam. If you've listed your teacher's RCM number, they will have access to your results when you get them. So will you through the RCM website. I'm not sure how Conservatory Canada works because I haven't yet gone through an exam with them, but I imagine it's similar. That was a little bunny trail. Back to the topic. So my student got her exam results back. And this is a very diligent, hardworking student. She does not slack off in her practice. She executes skills and techniques very, very well. And she got a mark that was far below her actual skill level. Worse than that, her adjudicator did not speak to her when she came. Usually you walk in to do an exam and you say hi and you're really nervous, and the person kind of gets that because they've been in an exam before. They've been nervous before, and it alleviates a lot of stress to at least be able to say hello to someone. So right off the bat, her adjudicator dehumanized her by not greeting her or treating her like a human being. He wouldn't speak to her except to give commands, and he made her feel put down and small and insignificant. This is not appropriate behavior for examinations, especially from adjudicators who have years of experience and who obviously have a huge impact and influence in students' lives. It's heartbreaking to me that this kind of behavior it happens sometimes. I don't think it's acceptable. I don't know that it's accepted by RCM, but certainly if he's treated everyone like this, nothing's been done about it so far. Anyways, my complaint is not about RCM or adjudicators in general, because you can run into this at any time, in any setting. It's not RCM specific. It's not Conservatory Canada specific. It's not Recital specific. There are just people in positions of influence that actively choose to make others feel small. The main reason that I'm talking about this is because I want you as a student to know that that's not acceptable. You don't have to make that kind of treatment acceptable in your mind. You don't have to say, this is an accurate reflection of who I am. I'm a disappointment. I'm small. I should be judged based on my appearance, or I should be judged for breathing. Don't accept that in yourself. You're better than that. You're much better than that. As pianists, we're doing our best. We're trying our hardest. You can't do better than your best. And if someone is going to judge you poorly before you've even played, frankly, that's not an accurate reflection of you. That's a reflection of them. Now, here are some specific things that I want to point out that were said in the adjudicator's notes. I'm not going to out him, and I'm not going to quote directly, because I remember the words that were used. Firstly, the language used was very cold and callous. And while he would say compliments, he would say them passively, as if this song has very good dynamic range, as how the compliments were presented. And then criticisms were, you need to attack this section better. His constructive criticism was vague enough that you couldn't really tell which part of the song he was referring to. And his compliments were flaccid and not attributed to the person, but as if they just appeared out of nowhere. When we refine music, it takes a lot of effort, and it's demeaning to that effort to say, this song has great dynamic range, when you could say, you did a great job developing the dynamics in this part of the song, attributing the compliments to you. Now, it wouldn't be a big deal if sometimes they attributed the compliments to you and then sometimes they used passive language. But he was using only passive language for compliments and very direct language for criticisms. Overall, when you blend this together, you get someone who doesn't acknowledge you as a person, who doesn't attribute good things to you, but only bad things, and then who uses aggressive language. This is a horrible experience for a student. Horrible. And if you happen to encounter this combination of ugly feelings, completely write off the adjudicator's remarks. Do not use them. Now I need to backtrack a bit. The aggressive language that I'm referring to, he used words like exploit. And at one point he accused my student of being aggressive and forced in her playing. Now, if that was an accurate representation of the student, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But when someone attributes aggression and force to you, when you're generally not an aggressive or forceful person, or not an aggressive or forceful player, I'm not quite sure what that is. I don't have a problem with people's word selections, but the words that you use reflect how you think. They reflect your attitudes towards things. And so what this tells me is that the adjudicator himself sees music as something to exploit, and that he is himself aggressive and forced, because I don't see that this student is aggressive or forced in her playing or otherwise. So let's talk about that for a minute. I'm not okay with exploiting details in music, because to me, you exploit an enemy that you want to diminish. You exploit weaknesses in a practical discipline like jujitsu. You exploit victims if you're a predator. But music is an art. We do not exploit things. When you sit down to play your song, you're not taking advantage of things in the song and using them to your own advantage. So this is where I really wanted to go with this talk. I want to talk about the spirit that we bring to music. Your songs are not your opponent. Well, they could be your opponent. They're not your mortal enemy, so that you need to tear them apart. If they're an opponent, they're like a sparring partner that's on the same team as you, that you're going to wrestle together with, and you're both going to get better, because you're going to make the song better. And the song is going to make you better. It's going to elevate your skills. It's going to take you as a pianist to a higher level. And so your song is your partner, not your opponent. The kind of mindset that I would want students to have, that I would want to cultivate in students, is not an exploitative or aggressive mindset. I would not advise you to see your practice as something to attack or to get hold of. And I wouldn't think of performing as winning or beating anything, beating the song, beating other people. I wouldn't encourage that kind of mindset, because it's not helpful to your music. actually. Because with music, we're creating art. I would prefer to cultivate in students the mindset that your music is your friend. You have a relationship with it, and you're going to give to it until it produces better, until you become better, till your music becomes better. And I would encourage you to think of your song as a garden. You spend time with it, you tend it, you pull out the weeds, you help it grow. Music is a living thing. I say music is a metaphor for life. I say music is the language of the soul. I don't want you to beat your language into submission. Never as a teacher would I want you to take music and attack it. I would want you to take it and cultivate it. Because I would never want you to attack your life and pull it apart. Combustion everywhere, flames, dumpster fire. I want you to cultivate your life. Use things in your life to make you a better person. Treat yourself well. Treat others well. Treat your music like it's a partner. Look for what you love about your songs, the way you look for what you love in your friends and in your family. Tend your pieces and your techniques into beautiful artwork. Because that's what we're doing in music. We're painting in the air. We're painting art into people's ears, into their souls. We're communicating with each other through music. This adjudicator chose to communicate aggression through music, and you can do that. Or you can choose to communicate beauty and effort and the best that you've got inside yourself. And that's what I want for people. So back to the practical things. What do you do when you get feedback like this from an adjudicator? Anytime that you've been made to feel diminished or small, that's not proper adjudication. Adjudication should tell you what you did well and what you can fix. It should be constructive criticism. It should be encouraging. And if you don't feel as if you can do something with what they gave you, and if you don't feel as if you've achieved something good, I would completely write off the adjudication. I would not use any of it at all. I would say that this kind of demeaning, aggressive, smallness, we should not take anything this person has to say into account, because I would not find them trustworthy. So that's the first thing. Once you've received this feeling, this awful experience, completely write it off. It's useless to you. The second thing is you could move on and work on your next exam. The third thing you could do, which I would advise you to do, is challenge the exam. RCM has a candidate services email address, and so if you've had a bad experience with RCM, you can email them, you can tell them the situation. One of the things that RCM could do is add on points to your previous mark. But I'm not a fan of that approach, because as a teacher, what I want is to know what my weaknesses are and to know what my students' weaknesses are. I value the adjudication. The mark is the mark. It's not insignificant, but the adjudication matters. And I value a mark that accurately reflects your actual capability. So I wouldn't want marks tacked on at the end because we're not happy with how it went. I want someone to properly mark you according to your skills. So RCM terms this as an appeal. We think of it as challenging the mark, because what we want to do is take the exam again to see if we can get a better mark from a different adjudicator, better feedback, more constructive criticism, less demeaning behavior. So what you want to do is ask your teacher to take a look at the adjudicator's remarks, pull out the things that they find. In my case, I found this quite unnerving, diminishing, aggressive, inaccurate to the student. So these are the things that I put in my email to RCM as a teacher. And then as the parent, you can write an email about the treatment that your child received at the exam, or if you're an adult who took the exam, the treatment you received at the exam. And then the combination of your physical experience at the exam and the teacher's experience reading the adjudication will amount to something to RCM, and they will send back a solution of some kind where you will either be able to appeal and retake the exam, or they will add on marks. I'm not sure how this works in Conservatory Canada. In the next couple years, I will be taking an exam with Conservatory Canada myself. So far, I only have experience taking them with RCM. But I have found Conservatory Canada to be very responsive in email replies. I had a question about a piece of technique, and someone got to me within the next couple of days and gave me an answer that was very concise and very helpful regarding this technique, and it helped me. And I love companies that are very responsive and very helpful. So I believe making an appeal or a challenge to an exam with Conservatory Canada would be pretty simple. As far as what to do at a recital, recitals are one-time things, and generally the adjudicator comes in from a different city or from a different area. They come in temporarily to adjudicate the recital and then they're gone. And what I would do with the feedback like this at a recital is let the coordinators, the people who put on the recital, know that that experience was unpleasant. If you let them know, and a bunch of other people who got the same treatment let them know, it's going to start being on their radar. And maybe next year when they host the recital, they'll get someone who's less unkind, who's more encouraging, who's more concise, who's actually useful in their adjudication remarks. And this is the real problem. This adjudication was not useful. It was harmful. What we want out of an adjudication is not to be marked like we passed a test. We want to be helped. We want to be encouraged. We want to know what we can do better. We want to be validated where we're at. You take an exam to say, I can play at a level 6 level. I can play at a level 8 level. And you can play, but you take the exam so you can say, and I got marked, and they said that I can play. They said there's things I can improve, but they said I'm certified at this level. So you get validation for where you are. She was not validated for where she was at. She was put down. And that is incredibly disheartening. And it's unfortunate that there are people in the system who will diminish others. Thankfully, there are many people in the system who won't. But it's important that when you run into people like this, you try and do something about it. For the sake of you in the future taking another exam, you don't want that same examiner. You in the future going to the festival, you don't want the same adjudicator. I hope you found this video helpful. I'm sorry if you've had this discouraging experience, and I hope that my remarks today will help you to put this bad adjudication you've received in its place. This is not trustworthy, not for me, not accurate to my playing today, not validating, not good constructive criticism, not something I should take into account when I practice into the future. I hope that you will make the proper steps that are right for you, whether that's I'm going to leave this in my past and we'll just work on the next exam, or I'm going to re-challenge this exam. I want to get good feedback, so I'm going to contact whoever's in charge here and see what I can do. And ultimately, I hope you found encouragement here and a good way to look at music, a good way to incorporate it into your life. Thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe. Share with anyone who you know has had a bad experience recently at an exam that you think is like totally uncalled for, not fair, The person put them down. It's awful. Share it with somebody because it might validate where they're at. Finally, I wish you a happy practice. Remember, your best is good enough because you can't do better than your best. So go out and do your best. Bye.